The government shutdown is making Colorado's air traffic controller shortage even worse.
Most of us are working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day.
The Supreme Court justices seem skeptical of the state's ban on conversion therapy for kids.
And now to have it potentially turned over, it's unspeakable.
A legal challenge to how Colorado handles prison labor. And a free digital library gives Coloradans the chance to read banned books without government censorship.
We're thinking of this as an ebook sanctuary.
Sit back and enjoy this program while you can. This is next. Air traffic controllers have been at the center of many federal government shutdowns, so we are watching the Coloradans who keep watch over the skies. Denver's been short dozens of air traffic controllers for years, so there's not much margin for people calling out sick. It's already leading to delays here and elsewhere that could get worse. Our Mark Salinger has that.
At the sixth busiest airport in the world, the shutdown leads to slowdowns.
We have been critically staffed for years, and the government shutdown definitely does not help that situation at all.
The FAA issued travel advisories Monday warning that flights to Denver were being delayed because of staffing issues with air traffic controllers. The delays continued on Tuesday as controllers, now working without pay, called out sick at several airports across the country.
Most of us are working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and that's been going on for quite a long time.
Steph Winder is the regional vice president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association.
Now we're doing all of that without any paycheck.
FAA data shows the Denver area is short dozens of air traffic controllers, even before the shutdown. The tower at DIA should have 41 controllers. At the end of last year, there were 32, with 6 in training. The Tracon Center near the airport that handles planes for approach and departure should have 93 controllers. As of last year, it had 72, with 8 in training. And the en route Air Traffic Control Center in Longmont that handles flights flying through the region should have 294 controllers. It had only 222, with another 51 in training.
We cannot just take people off the street, give them 2 weeks of training and say, there you go, go manage air traffic. It doesn't work that way.
9 News aviation expert Greg Feith says the process to become an air traffic controller takes years. For now, the academy in Oklahoma City remains open during the shutdown, but if it continues, funding could run out.
You shut down the United States government, you shut down training. We have a lack of instructors. We have a lack of flow through with new controllers.
FAA documents show the 35-day government shutdown in 2019 resulted in large hiring and training delays. The union says we could see that again at a time when air traffic controllers are pushed to their limits.
When is the government going to reopen? And when it does, are we going to get paid? Definitely a question on a lot of people's minds right now.
The FAA says that controller staffing recovery would benefit from uninterrupted hiring and training, but really they haven't gotten that in several years. Back in 2019, they had the government shutdown as they said that staffing levels were finally beginning to recover. Then the pandemic came, which disrupted the system again. That's all to say that staffing shortages for air traffic controllers are nothing new, and Kyle, something that's not going to be fixed overnight.
I know you have also been looking into the government subsidies that allow air service to some smaller airports in Colorado.
Yeah, it's called Essential Air Services, and they go to more rural airports. They deliver things like medicine, food, doctors, things like that. Those get government subsidies around the country, so there's concern when those subsidies run out at the end of this week. At least here in Colorado, that company that runs it, Denver Air Connection, says that they're going to continue doing those essential services, flying to all these rural airports for as long as they can, the foreseeable future, they say.
Talking about going to what, like Alamosa?
Exactly, Cortez, all these little small places.
All right, Mark Salinger, thank you. The Trump administration is threatening to increase the financial pain for federal workers during the government shutdown in an attempt to get Democrats to cave and pass the Republican budget. The administration is now threatening to withhold back pay for federal workers who are on the job during the shutdown. Now, the law says that federal workers should receive back pay following a shutdown. But in a memo last night, the White House Budget Office outlined a legal argument to deny back pay to some 750,000 furloughed federal workers. It argues that the law signed by Trump in 2019 leaves it up to Congress to authorize back pay for federal employees as part of a funding bill to end the shutdown. When asked about it today, President Trump said that back pay, quote, depends on who we're talking about, and said, quote, there are some people who don't deserve to be taken care of. Trump's threat to not pay all federal workers could have a significant impact in the Denver area. The Federal Center in Lakewood houses the largest concentration of federal agencies outside D.C. Today, local and federal leaders said the new threats just add to the stress for federal employees who have already faced months of uncertainty as President Trump and Elon Musk purged the ranks of government workers.
He's using our federal employees as bargaining chips, and this has cascading impacts on our local and state and U.S. economy.
What I'm hearing from community members with that emphasis on the federal employees is that it's more worry about that unknown, as we've got families that have been now for months and months been concerned about their ability to put food on the table.
Many civilian federal employees will miss their first paycheck this Friday. Members of the military could go without pay if the shutdown lasts until the 15th. A Colorado law was in front of the U.S. Supreme Court again today. Arguments over the state's ban on conversion therapy for minors, where therapists attempt to change the sexual orientation or gender identity of a kid. Opponents say it is cruel pseudoscience. Backers say that banning that therapy is an attack on their free speech. Here's our Angeline McCall with that.
6 years ago, this bill made it into law, and today it made it to the Supreme Court with arguments from both sides.
This law prophylactically bans voluntary conversations, censoring widely held views,
because that treatment does not work and carries great risk of harm.
And Childs V. Salazar, a Christian therapist from Colorado Springs, argues against the state's ban on conversion therapy or trying to change a young person's sexual orientation or gender identity.
The overwhelming feeling during the entire process of watching this piece of legislation go through the legal system has been fear.
Democratic State Senator Michelson Janae worked on the bill 3 times until it passed.
The coming together, the testifying, children sitting in front of the legislators testifying of their deepest hurts and pains and asking us to solve the problem. And we did. And now to have it potentially turned over, it's unspeakable.
LGBTQ advocacy organization One Colorado lobbied for the law, sharing research that shows youth who undergo conversion therapy are twice as likely to attempt suicide.
If we see the court overturn this ban on conversion therapy, we could see a domino effect across the U.S. Where more children will be harmed by these practices that are not supported by the main medical associations.
On the other side, those who want the ban overturned say it infringes on free speech between therapist and patient, and those who sponsor the bill say the ban amounts to regulation, just as the state does on other businesses and medical practices.
I think this is one of those areas where we are not regulating speech. We're regulating the profession.
Justices seemed poised Tuesday to side with the plaintiff over so-called viewpoint discrimination. A decision is expected by June.
The state law doesn't prohibit conversion therapy in its entirety, only for licensed professionals. This practice can still continue today within churches or clergies, for example. Kyle.
I mean, I'm curious. I haven't ever heard of this law being enforced, right? I've never heard of a therapist like facing some kind of sanction for doing this.
No, and in fact, one of the justices, Sotomayor, she actually mentioned how unusual it is to see a case at the Supreme Court level when there has been not one enforcement action due to a bill, and we have not seen that in the 6 years that this has been on the books.
Well, this is the third prominent case involving free speech and religious rights out of Colorado to go to the court, and it doesn't look like this one's headed Colorado's way either. Angeline McCall, thank you. Loveland City Council is getting together again tonight to continue the conversation about long-term and short-term solutions for homelessness in that city. Last week, the temporary permit for the city's only overnight adult shelter expired and the place closed. The mayor then faced cheers and criticism for letting people on the streets sleep inside City Hall during the storm Sunday night. All those folks have now been offered shelter that's been set up at the city's resource center. Shelter space across northern Colorado is limited right now. Fort Collins' main shelter was damaged in a fire last month. Between there and Loveland, NOCO's just lost 140 shelter spots.
A solution is out there. We just need the partners and, all of the community to be a part of it. so that we can provide a safe, warm place for the people that we really should be caring about, because they have the least amount of resources and the greatest amount of needs.
A resource center in Loveland will allow people to stay there overnight for the next 30 days. The city will discuss more permanent solutions at that meeting tonight. Colorado's prisons insist they're just putting inmates to work. Be productive. Advocates argue it is involuntary servitude and illegal.
We are asking that the voice of the people be heard.
And a local library system is giving banned books their own virtual shelf, an e-book library that could fill in censorship gaps around the state. That's next. Quitting a job in prison isn't like quitting a job on the outside, because you can get punished for refusing a work assignment in jail. For the next 9 days, a court in Denver will consider whether Colorado's prisons are using involuntary servitude by forcing prisoners to either work a job or face discipline. Class action lawsuit filed by several civil rights and workers' rights advocacy groups argued that Colorado's prisons are violating the state's ban on involuntary servitude. Voters passed that back in 2018. Most prisoners in the state's correctional facilities are enrolled in mandatory work programs. Think like doing food prep in the kitchen or janitorial work around the prison. Prisoners who refuse lose certain privileges like rec time and family visits. Advocates argue that amounts to coercion. It said that prisoners don't have the same protections as other workers like sick days or workplace safety standards.
This isn't, for me, just about what happens behind prison walls. It's about the kind of Colorado we're building and making sure that every worker in this state is free from exploitation, free from coercion.
Colorado's Department of Corrections wouldn't comment on this lawsuit today, but their attorneys have previously argued that the loss of privileges that prisoners face is not a severe enough punishment for it to be considered illegal coercion. Colorado's justice system is still cleaning up the mess left behind by disgraced former district attorney Linda Stanley. She ran her mouth about a child abuse case in Fremont County, leading it to it being tossed, but it was just reinstated by a state appeals court. The appeals court agreed that the former Republican DA in Fremont and Chaffee County was in the wrong when she went to local media and badmouthed a criminal defendant named Brooke Crawford. Prosecutors claimed that Crawford's boyfriend shook a child to death. Crawford was charged with child abuse. DA Stanley told the reporter that Crawford was just using this boyfriend as a live-in babysitter. She said the couple viewed the baby as a pain in the blank. The judge in Fremont County ruled that that interfered with the couple's right to due process and dismissed the criminal case. Stanley has since been disbarred for those comments and a grab bag of other misconduct. But late last week, an appeals court ruled that while her comments were inappropriate, they were not grounds to dismiss the case. The appeals court reinstated the charges against Crawford and sent that case back to a lower court. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi, I was out today still harvesting tomatoes. I mean, like those big fat suckers. I mean, the good ones. And I've been thinking in terms of my second act career that tomato farmer should be on the list. And that is why I am deeply concerned about how many more days or weeks of tomato picking we have before they all get frozen out.
Good news for you.
Yes.
And your tomatoes, Kyle.
And my second career.
And your second career, all of which will be safe for at least the next 10 days.
Check, check, check.
Bingo, bango, which, by the way, today is the average first freeze. That's the reason you bring that up. Kyle, perfect toss there, right? Average first freeze today, October the 7th. Boulder, October the 6th. For most of the Front Range, it's really within the next couple of days we have our average first freeze for us around the metro area and the eastern plains. In most cases, actually, we are past that now at this point. My clicker not doing what it's supposed to be doing right now, so let's get that up and running. But you get the point here, right? It's our average first freeze is today for us here across the Denver area. Now, the other kind of takeaway is that over the last 50 hours until 4 p.m. today, we had 50 consecutive hours of cloudy skies for us here in Denver. That kind of Seattle, London-like weather, we've had that for the last little while. Now, high pressure moves on in from the south and east. This is going to keep us on the toasty side as we head over the next couple of days, starting tomorrow with a high in the upper 70s today, just a high 59 tomorrow, 77. That is almost 10 degrees above average for this time of year. 70s, 80s, eastern plains, 50s and 60s in the mountains. And that 7-day forecast is generally dry and warm. But Kyle, good news there for your tomatoes. We're not dropping anywhere close to really freezing anytime soon over the next few days.
We really celebrate that idea of libraries providing a marketplace of ideas.
There's something delicious about reading a book that officials don't want you to see. Public Library offering statewide access to banned books. Next. A library system in Colorado is making hundreds of banned books accessible online. Anythink Libraries in Adams County says they believe it's the first project of its kind in the state. And it comes after years of book ban attempts in public school and libraries across the state. Anythink's releasing their Freedom to Read collection online in conjunction with National Banned Book Week. The collection includes nearly 500 books and documents that have been the subject of book bans across the country. There are titles from frequently banned authors like Stephen King, but also works like the Bible and the Constitution. The American Library Association estimates 137 book titles were challenged in Colorado's public schools and libraries last year. Anythink's executive director says he hopes this project will fill in those gaps for readers across the state.
What Anythink is doing is creating a very low barrier for people to have access to that content so they can read that content, review it, understand the perspectives that are presented or the facts that are presented, and make their own decisions. If we don't have access to that content, it's really hard to appreciate a different point of view, to verify factual information, or to understand another person's experience.
Sounds pretty dangerous, huh? Anythink's Freedom to Read collection is available for free without a library card to anybody in Colorado over the age of 13. You can borrow through the Palace Project app. It just asks for some basic info, name, email address, and your location. May I make a recommendation? Something that I think is worth your time? I had a great conversation recently with Reese Waters. He is a YouTuber with about 600,000 subscribers. Reese has a background in news and sports at ESPN and at our Tegna sister station in Washington, D.C. We covered a lot of ground, from rising political violence to covering misinformation to what happens when media companies try to use the trust built by local journalists to push the company's politics.
Generally, when it comes to cable news, you know what you're going to hear. But on local news, the idea is that you're a little bit protected from those partisan echo chambers. So when those start to seep in, that's what becomes the most problematic to me, because people don't have their antenna up when it comes to rhetoric. That's what makes it all the more effective coming out of local news.
If you're not familiar with Reese, I think you'll find his perspective refreshing. You can find a link to my full hour-long conversation with Reese Waters on Next social media pages or on the Next section of 9news.com. You will always get the last word around here. Marilyn has your feedback. Thank you, and I will have it for you all next. Feedback tonight from John, who says, why can't Kyle take constructive criticism? He never reads texts that are negative to him. Pete writes, Kyle Clark, you are a lying viper from hell. Bob says, you should rename yourself Activist Kyle Clark. Common sense is rarely presented by you. And Jerry thoughtfully opines, you're a piece of shirt liar. That's what Jerry wrote. I think that's a typo, but I'm not sure. But all constructive criticism for sure.